Hi, I'm Laura, and we're going to do a craft that's going to teach us how to use positive and negative space. So we're going to make mandalas like this, and we're going to learn about what positive and negative space is. So positive space in art is referring to an object. So if you're drawing a picture of a tree, it would be the picture of the tree, or maybe it's a picture of a person. And the negative space would be the space that's around it, the background. And here is an image that is kind of fun because it's an optical illusion. So when you look at this image, if you see a vase, then that is your positive space. But if you are seeing the two faces, then that would be your positive space. So this is kind of a fun picture because positive and negative space can change back and forth. And when we're talking about art, positive and negative space can be something that you can use to your advantage to make a good balanced picture, like this one. So this has a really good use of the ground and the tree being our positive space. And it's about the same amount as our background or our negative space. So it looks quite nice. You can also decide maybe you want your positive space to fill a lot more of the room than the negative space, like this image where there's a lot of the tree and not so much of the background. Or you can even have an image like this where there's a lot of negative space and much less positive space. And these aren't quite as balanced, but it can help you tell a story when you're doing a piece of art. So in ours, we're going to do something like this. And for our purposes, we're going to say that our positive space is the stuff that we're going to scratch off, where the color is showing through. And our negative space is going to be the black space. And you don't even have to have it on the colored background. You can hold it up and just put it in a window like this too. But this does help you kind of see some of the space. And for this project, there's going to be different age levels. So if making the mandala is a little bit too difficult for you, I would say maybe kindergarten, first and second grade, you might want to just play with the scratch art paper like this. And instead of doing a pattern, the mandala like this, maybe just draw an image of a tree or an image of an animal. And then you can just scratch off that image to get positive and negative space that way. But if you are up for a challenge, I'm going to show you how to make the mandala because it is quite nice, and we're going to learn a little bit about symmetry. Out of your envelope, you're going to take out some of this paper. So you have a piece of tracing paper that looks like this. You have your scratch art paper that is taped to a piece of carbon paper like this. You've got your colored sheet. And then you have the circles. It kind of looks like a bullseye. And then there is a wooden stick that's not in the envelope, just in the bag for scratching with. The other things you're going to need are a pencil and a pen. If you have a blue or a red or a colored pen, something that's not black, it makes it a little bit easier to see. And then you'll need just a little bit of tape. It can be Scotch tape or it can be masking tape. It doesn't really matter. It just helps kind of keep your paper in place for you. So the first thing we're going to do then is to take the circle paper, and you're going to design your mandala. So it can be whatever you want. Whenever you do this, you can erase it too, so having an eraser is a good idea. But you're just going to pick 1/8 of the circle. So this is a whole circle, and it's divided into 8 pieces, kind of like a piece of pizza. So you're going to pick one pizza square, and you're going to draw some kind of image in there. So start maybe in the center. I find it easier to start down here, and decide what you want down there. And maybe in the next area, you're going to have, I don't know, maybe you want something that looks kind of like flower petals, or you can even draw just straight lines. And then you can kind of even break that area and go into the next spot. And just draw any kind of pattern that you like. Okay, so now that you have something you kind of like, you're going to decide what is going to be your positive and what is going to be your negative space. So for this part, we're going to actually color in the part that we're going to scratch off. So maybe I'm going to take out this little bit in here. And you want to kind of have a good balance of positive and negative space. So you kind of want to leave about 50% in each segment. So maybe we'll take out this part here. And this one up here. And we'll take out this here. And you can add more lines if you need to, or take lines out if it's not going to work very good. And you don't have to have all big areas. You can have just lines in there too. Maybe right here, I want to actually have just a line. It's going to be just a scratch, kind of like down the middle right here. I just left one little line there. So go ahead and decide what you want that to be and fill in all your areas. Okay, for the next step, after you have filled in all of your spaces, you're going to use your piece of tracing paper, and it's the paper that you can kind of see through a little bit. And you're going to need some tape. So I'm going to show you a trick with tape actually. You just need a couple of pieces, and what I do is you can take your tape and you can put it on your sleeve or on your jeans or on anything like that. Just actually stick it to your clothes. So then when I pull my tape off, it's not so sticky that it rips my paper. And then I can kind of use it over and over again, and it'll hold things down, but it won't ruin my image. So you're gonna just take your tracing paper and tape it right over the top of the little 8 pizza pie here that you did. And the next thing is to take your pencil, and we're gonna trace just the lines. You don't have to trace the part that you colored, where the positive and negative space are going to be. We just want our lines because we're going to use this to copy our image over and over again into each one of our 8 pieces of pie so that we end up with a full circle. So go ahead and do that part. Then after you have all your lines traced, you want to make sure that you draw the outside of your pizza shape. So that way it will help us line up with our other pizza shapes. And then you're going to take off the tracing paper. And now you have your image just like that on your tracing paper. You're going to need to take the tape off. Be careful with it. It's a good thing you stuck it to your clothes because it will make it not so sticky. And now I'm going to take my tracing paper, so it was like this, and I'm going to flip it over to the other side. And now I'm going to line it up in the pizza shape right next to the one I just did. And you want to get as close as you can to getting those lines to line up. And once they do, go ahead and tape that down. And now I'm going to take my pencil again, and I'm going to draw right over the top of the lines that I drew. And it's going to actually transfer my lead from my pencil onto the paper because it's on the other side. And then when I take the paper off, I'll be able to see the image, but in reverse. So go ahead and do that part. And when you're done with that, then take the paper up again. And now you can see the lines from the other side. And then you're going to take that same piece of paper and put the tape on the other side again. And I'm still using the same pieces of tape. Unless yours kind of got ruined. You just need those two. And now I'm going to flip it. So line it up with what you just did and then flip it again over to the other side. And it will go on the next piece of pie right next to the one you just did. And then line that up and tape it down. And now that I'm going again on this side, it's kind of hard to tell where my pencil lines that I've already traced are. So I kind of find it easy if you start in the center and then work your way out and make sure you're doing all the lines as you go, then you won't miss any and you won't get any that are forgotten. And it's okay if you do. You can always put your paper back down and trace it again if you missed a line here or there. So go ahead and do that part. And you're going to want to repeat this process over and over and over again until we filled all of our circle in. Okay, after you have finished drawing all 8 of your pieces, like I have here, I've got this one done already, then you're ready for the next step. So you can keep this and make a mandala on scratch paper afterwards if you want. It's kind of fun to play with. The next thing you're going to need is this. So this is the scratch paper and this is the carbon paper behind it. So the shiny side should be facing up on the scratch paper, just in case this came apart in there. And the carbon paper kind of has a side that's dull and then a side that's black. And you want the shiny side to be on the darkest side of the carbon paper. But hopefully it stayed together in your bag for you and you won't need to worry about that. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to put the shiny side down flat on the table. And then you're going to take your picture and you're going to put it right over the top and you're going to try and line it up the best you can. Right on top of that. They should be the same size. And then we're going to use some tape. And you can stick it to your clothes again. You're going to want 4 pieces this time. And then you're going to take them and you're going to tape it down to the table or whatever you're working on. Tape each one of the corners and try to make sure they stay lined up so that way your mandala stays in the center of your scratch paper. And then the next step is to use a pen, something that's not black because it's hard to see from your pencil lines. And we're going to use the pens and we're going to trace just the lines, just like we did on here. We just need to trace this part. You don't have to worry about the part that we filled in. So go ahead and just draw right over the top of all those lines. Sometimes I like to just go ahead and work from the center and then kind of work your way out. That way it's easy not to forget any lines. So go ahead and do that part. After you have done drawing all the lines, you want to make sure you go back and take a look and make sure you didn't miss any lines because I see that I have missed some up here. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure I trace over those. It is kind of hard to line this back up once we take this off, so you want to do a double check to make sure you got everything. The other thing that you want to do is you might want to trace some of the lines that I already have on here. If you're going to have maybe a line that goes right here, and then you're going to want to do the outside line too, for sure. So make sure if you want any of those in your actual drawing that you're going to trace those too. So go ahead and do that part. So after you have all your lines traced, we're going to actually take this off, and you can notice too with this picture here, if you want to use this later, you could use colored pencils or something and color in the rest of it, or just use your pencil and shade in all the parts like you kind of do on here, and you would have 2 different images that way, and it kind of makes a nice little picture on its own. But you can notice that if you were to cut this circle in half and flip it over on the other side, that we have perfect symmetry here. So it's actually radial symmetry, and we're flipping back and forth. So each fourth of this is going to be exactly the same. So you can even fold it up into 4 pieces and it will look just the same in all 4 pieces. And you can see that here, how I have 4 little petals that come out. You can see we can fold it in half and fold it in half again, and it would be a mirror image of itself. So go ahead and take the tape off. And if you want to use this picture later on, then you want to be kind of careful taking your tape off so that it doesn't tear that picture, so that you can use that as an image too. Okay, so now we're going to take this off and set it aside, and then lift up this, and now I'm going to take off the tape on the scratch paper too. Remove this. And you can use this piece of carbon paper over and over again to trace something else with it too, if you ever want to. So you can kind of see now, it's very hard to see on camera, but you can see my lines are on there. Enough that I can see where they're at so that I can start scratching. So the next part, for this part, you might want to put down a newspaper, because when we start to scratch off the black part, it does kind of get little pieces of it everywhere. So kind of make sure you're working on top of something or on top of a piece of newspaper so you don't ruin your table. So the next part is to find our image that we started with. Wait, this one right here. So we're going to use this as a reference so we know what spots we're going to cut or scratch out. So I know that I'm going to scratch out the middle. So all you're going to do is take your stick and you can kind of trace over some of those lines. And then just scratch out that part. So you have to be kind of patient with this project and go kind of slow, and it might take a few times of sitting down to work on this, and that's okay. So just be patient, and if your hand gets tired, give it a break. And so I've already scratched out the middle, you can see right there. So now the next piece I want to scratch out, I'm going to leave this part black. The next one I'm going to do is going to be right here. And the way these kind of come together, it makes a little triangle. Now as you're scratching, you can see sometimes some black gets left behind. And if you really want to, you can go in and clean that out later. You can kind of make that decision, or you can wait and do it at the end. So you just kind of keep working out from the center until you have filled all the spots in, like this one. So take your time and make sure you refer back to this one. And I like to really start right here and work out, because sometimes it gets confusing what you took out and you might get kind of lost. So just keep doing each little ring at a time. So after you're all finished with your scratching, then you can go ahead and decide maybe you don't want to put it on the colored paper. That's fine. You can put it in your window just like this so that you can see through it, and that looks nice. Or you can put it on the colored paper too, like this, and you kind of want to line it up in there. And then you can double side some tape down and stick it on there if you want, or tape it on the top just a little bit if it's Scotch tape. And so that way you have an image that looks like this. Now, if this is too hard, if you think this is going to be too hard for you and you don't want too much of a challenge, or you're one of the younger kiddos, then you might want to you could even get a coloring book image and do the same thing where you trace over the lines from a coloring book image onto the paper and right onto the scratch drawing. And then you can scratch out different parts of that. And if you're really young, you can just let them have the scratch paper and a scratcher and just kind of scratch off whatever you want and make an image that way too. So have fun, and I hope you learned something about positive and negative space.